Welcome to Season 4 of the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we discuss business agility through customer experience, employee experience, and digital transformation. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom. The Agile World podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To read more about the topics discussed on this show, you can go to my website at gregkihlstrom.com and read my latest articles or get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, now available on Amazon and other retailers. My name is Greg Kihlstrom, and I'm your host. Today we're going to talk about the value of customer insights to business growth and how organizations can more easily understand their key audiences. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Darshan Mehta, founder of iResearch.com and ConnectQuick.com, and author of the book, Getting to AHA, Today's Insights Are Tomorrow's Facts. Darshan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Greg. Nice to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to talking with you. So why don't we start by you giving a little background on yourself and what you're currently doing?
Sure. I am actually born in India, raised in the U.S., and professionally, I've been doing branding, marketing, advertising strategy, and market research for quite a few years now. And the way I got into it is I really enjoyed doing case studies in college. And I realized that I'm not so discouraged by the problem is because I just love solutions. And so as a result of that, I went into consulting, and I also had an affinity more towards getting to understand what consumers think and feel. So that led me on the path to go pursue insights.
Well, let's start following on to that. Let's start by talking about your work at iResearch, which allows users to quickly extract insights from consumers throughout the world. What are the biggest challenges that you saw that caused you to create iResearch?
So I've been doing traditional research for a while, and there's basically two methodologies: doing qualitative or quantitative. And most people want to get at the why of why people do things or not do things, and to understand the underlying causes and the real source of the problem. And they often end up going more towards quantitative, which is surveys, because they're more familiar with that methodology and it costs less. But what I found over the years with working with clients, that they often gained more when they actually did focus groups first and then did a survey. But focus groups were too costly, too time consuming, and were not that easy. So then came along the internet, and I started dabbling with the internet back with online focus groups in 1998. I was one of the first ones. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure how it was going to go either online. But I quickly realized that this is really an opportunity to take focus groups into a whole different realm. It's faster, costs less, and in many ways, you actually get more information and insights from consumers and employees than you do the traditional method. The reason I say that is with an online chat based system, you pose a question, but everyone can answer because no one's interrupting anybody. And so when you pose the question, everybody answers, everyone sees it, and then everyone can respond to it. So I've seen that the transcripts from online sessions are considerably longer with much more information that's packed in there than I've seen with other methods of doing it. And so I started
Yeah,
using it with clients, and and I just found the results to be better, easier, faster, and it really cut out a lot of the cost. And going back to what the original problem is, a lot of with the traditional focus groups, a bulk of the budget actually goes to what I call non-research infrastructure costs, such as transcripts, videotaping, food, all these other things, and travel that basically eat up the budget and make it too expensive. And so it's only been possible for the big, large corporations to do this, whereas many small to medium-sized businesses could really benefit from these type of insights.
yeah, and I having been on the other side of the one way mirror a few times, and having done the old school in person focus groups. I mean, certainly I think they have their place, but I remember running my marketing agency.
Hmm.
That it was often prohibitive, cost prohibitive, time prohibitive, all of those things for clients to do that. Even though we all, to your point, we all kind of knew that it was going to be we would get good insights out of it. It was just like, man, we don't have the time or money, or the client doesn't have the time or money to invest in this, particularly when we're working with some mid-size or even smaller client. So is this, what kind of companies benefit most from this, and in your experience?
Well, we've used it for all types of different purposes in different size companies. It's not just particular to an industry, but it's often more in terms of what is it you're really trying to research. So, for example, we used it for ad testing. We've used it for package testing, cover testing, to test new ideas, concepts. So there's a variety of uses that you can use this for, and that's applicable to all different levels and sizes of companies. But I've done work in the finance industry, automotive, sports industry, as well as health products, and even political.
How should a customer measure success with this? So obviously they're measuring the feedback and analyzing the feedback, but how do they know that they're getting good results? Like how do you quantify your value for them?
Well, if you really want to quantify it, the best thing you could do is actually let's just step back for a second. I mean, what
Sure.
exactly is research? Sometimes it sounds very complicated, but I would simplify it. I would say is basically structured curiosity.
Yeah.
And what you're trying to do is you're trying to poke and probe, and you're actually exploring. And that's where focus groups come in. You're actually exploring some thoughts and ideas, some gut feelings, and you want to get reactions from your customers or employees to say, hey, is this something that feels right, sounds right? What do you think? What do you feel? And then once you have that, now you have a better basis upon which to actually do a survey. And I would say you end up coming with better survey questions and answer choices, which then you can quantify. So that's one way to do it. But the other is, getting insights is an ongoing, evolving process. It never stops. And so depending on what it is you're trying to test, so if you're doing, let's say, focus groups to find out message testing, you can actually then see, hey, did this campaign that we did as a result of focus groups, did it end up, increasing sales, or what did we achieve our objectives with this campaign as we set out because the messaging was spot on or not? So there's many different ways to measure it. It really depends on how you've used the focus groups and for what purpose.
Yeah, that's great. What format, how long are the number of questions, or what's a typical um what's a
Length?
typical engagement from your standpoint look like?
Sure. Typically, the focus groups last about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Most groups I do are about 2 hours. And it might seem like a long time online, but if you have an engaging conversation, we often find that people don't want to leave because they're just enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's similar to like if you go to a cocktail party and you meet a few people and you start talking about a topic and everybody's just into it. And your goal is really to have a very engaging conversation that's natural as possible and have basically people do a deep dive because everyone's getting into the topic. And then you're saying stuff that I'm feeding off of and vice versa. And next thing you know, time is just flying by. And at the end, you say, wow, we all learned a lot. And that was great. It's really informative and interesting. But one thing, I think one of the things that could happen now with the online methodology and for the cost to come down is I think there's a possibility now you could do more micro groups as well if you wanted to, that were, let's say, an hour to 45 minutes or whatever, and do them more often because the cost is considerably lower than the traditional costs were for big focus groups. So when you're spending that much money for a traditional focus, you want to make sure you keep them as long as possible. And so this methodology gives you more flexibility.
In my experience, there's because focus groups had been done so infrequently, there was kind of a reliance on, well, we did this research, let's say 24 months ago or so. That's like forever these days, right? But
Right.
we did this research way back then, and they said this, and as we all know, the world changes a lot in 12 to 18 to 24 months, and so I would imagine that's great on its own, even just to get more frequency, as well as, I mean, do you see clients seeing measuring for relative changes or anything? I know it's not quantitative, it's a little easier to do some of that, but I mean, do you see people doing repeat focus groups on similar subject matter?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and now I think you're right. As you know, we're in a very agile world, so things happen
Right.
very quickly. I mean, in this COVID era that we're living in, groups that were done pre-COVID and post-COVID, you're going to be finding a lot of different insights and findings, things that
Yeah.
people hadn't even thought about or expected, and things have definitely changed in terms of what are priorities and where what people are looking for. So absolutely, it can change. But that's one of the nice things about a methodology like this. You can actually implement them, create them, and launch them quickly, and get the results instantly. Basically, you get the transcript at the end of the session.
Well, let's switch gears and talk about your other company, ConnectQuick. It's an app that allows users to make instant connections and take part in engaging interactions. What was the challenge you saw that ConnectQuick helps people overcome?
Well, it was from a personal frustration and what I call a pebble in my shoe. And it was irritating me. And that was when I go to conferences. I would go to a conference and I'd walk away with, 20, 30, 40 business cards. And I'm like, wow, am I really going to have the time to type or scan all these in? And most times they ended up in a rubber band bound together in my drawer, right? And I figured in this day and age, it has to be a better way. And
Yeah.
so basically, this app allows you to quickly scan the other person's phone, which has a QR code, a personal QR code. You can actually have your own image on there and a QR code on top of it that's personalized, and it instantly goes right into your phone. There's no typing, no scanning, no fuss, or any of that. But then it goes beyond that as well. The other thing I think we all wear multiple hats now. I don't think one business card cuts it.
Yeah.
So in this, you actually can set up three different profiles: personal, business, and custom. And that way you can decide which profile you want to share when you're exchanging contact info.
That's great. Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, I know myself personally, I wear a few hats as well, and it's the concept of business cards. I still get them once in a while, but I find stacks of I have archives of various business cards from
Yep.
throughout the years, and I don't know, maybe I should look into that as well. Um, but
Well, the app is free. You're welcome to try it. And the other benefit is so once you want to, like, say, exchange contact info, if I update my phone number or anything else, it will automatically update it for you. So you don't have to worry about, hey, do I have Darshan's most current email or phone number?
if you jump around a lot, or if you meet someone in a certain setting, or and change or something, or just I think with the growth with more independent contractors and stuff like that, that seems interesting.
And in your profile, you'll see in your profile, you actually can even include a little video and a picture of yourself in each profile, whether it's personal or business or custom. So if you wanted to highlight a little bit of what you're doing with your business or your hobby, whatever, you can actually do that as well. It also allows you to consolidate all the information from all your social channels or all the ways you want to be able to be contacted. You have that ability. It's all on one contact card now.
How are you measuring success with ConnectQuick?
Well, right now we just launched this, so we're just measuring success by, getting more users to give it a try, as well as seeing their level of engagement and feedback they're giving us, and if there's other areas they want us to really improve upon. So right now we're just really trying to get as many people engaged with it, using it, and giving us feedback.
Exciting. Yeah, that's exciting to hear, and yeah, good luck growing the product there.
Thanks.
Um, So let's one last topic here. Let's talk a little bit about your book. It's titled "Getting to Aha: Today's Insights Are Tomorrow's Facts." Can you give a little summary for those that haven't read it, and what you wanted to get across to readers of the book?
Sure. In this hyper competitive business environment we live in, where you're not only competing with the person next door, but most likely someone around the world, you really are looking for a couple of things to be successful. And that is one, to differentiate yourself, your product or your service. And two is to innovate. And the way to do that is to gather insights. So, how do you gather insights? And the thing is, insights are all around you. And what it really requires at a basic level is to have more conversations. The good news is nowadays with the digital world, there's conversations going on about your product and service, whether you're engaged or not, with reviews and people
Right.
talking to each other. And that's one way to have conversations and monitor them. But the other is to actually engage in having them on your own, either through, one-on-one interviews or doing focus groups online and so on. And I think in this day and age, we're relying a little bit too much on analytics, which I'm not against analytics. I'm a researcher like it, but I think you need to understand analytics are telling you what people have done. they're not still telling you why or what's the underlying motivator or trigger causing
Yeah.
them to do that or not do that.
Talk a little bit about your process of writing it. As you were researching and thinking through it, were there any new discoveries or insights that you had along the way um, that that then kind of made it into the book?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them were consistent with what I'd experienced in my professional consulting life with a lot of clients, and there's just certain patterns you still see that occur, and
Yeah.
that came through in the book as well. But I did talk about basically a couple of eras that I think are going on now. One is I think we're in an era of where people are no longer buying products; they're buying experiences. And
Yeah.
the experience starts not only from the time they buy your product, but actually way before when they actually encounter it, learn about it, buy it, and then also post purchase. And I think people are looking at the totality of the experience and how it makes them feel. And if you can have an emotional connection with the experience, then you're going to exponentially improve your ability to be successful.
So along those lines, actually, because that's I think there's a lot of talk now about exactly what you're saying, which is experience being really a primary point of competition among companies. So, you all of a sudden you have, let's say, in pick an industry like financial services, you've got
Mhm.
a bunch of banks competing on experience. How can you use research to kind of dive a little deeper? So we know everybody wants a good experience with their bank, and as if you're like me, you've had terrible experiences with many banks, but um at the same time, how can you use research to kind of find out not only that your consumers want something that that we can kind of assume to be true, but like what do you do with that? Like how do you make your experience different than someone else's? And what should you be kind of listening for to your audience?
Well, there's a little bit of an art to it. When you actually talk to people with these focus groups and the conversations, you really have to listen well. And oftentimes, people are not going to tell you, "I want this,"
Yeah.
right? They're not going to tell you that, but they will tell you what they don't like, and they'll tell you what really bothers them or what that pebble in their shoe is. And that's where you need to come in and say, "Hey, I think there's a better way to do this because I know my industry and I know what's going on." For example, the iPod when it first came out. You know, Apple and Steve Jobs were not the first MP3 player at all in the
Right.
market. But he recognized, being in his industry, that the price of hard drives was coming down and they were getting smaller and cheaper. But at the same time, there was still this huge frustration with people being able to take their music anywhere. So combine the two. One, price would come down. I can create a product, he figured out, where you can basically take 1,000 songs in your pocket. Wow, that's an emotional connection.
Yeah.
And basically, and then throw in this amazing flywheel technology, which is kind of cool, right? And basically, he came up with a solution. So you're often not going to get customers to tell you this is what I want, but you're definitely going to find out from them what they don't like and their pain points. And that's when you can actually then, if you know your industry and your area, you're going to say, hey, there's a real opportunity here for me that I can provide a solution that I think that's going to really address a current pain point.
Well, last question before we wrap up. I was asked for recommendations on other reading or other things like that. So, do you have any recommendations for something the audience can read, watch, listen to in order to learn more about what we discussed today?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a couple of good books out there. One is, The Other Side of Innovation, Solving the Execution Challenge, and also the Four Steps to Epiphany. So I think what I would encourage people to do is, go out and have more conversations. There's lots of insights to be tapped into, and really listen carefully. And I think you'll find ways to differentiate as well as find ways to innovate and really become hopefully one of your best competitors, so that you don't have to worry as much about your competition because you're just basically improving upon what you're already doing.
Wonderful. Well, Darshan, thanks so much for joining the show. For those listening, what's the best way for them to keep up with what you're doing?
They can follow me at iresearch.com. Welcome to email me directly at dm@iresearch.com as well.
Wonderful. Well, again, I'd like to thank Darshan Mehta, founder of iResearch and ConnectQuick, for joining the show. Thanks for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kilstrom. Talk with you next week. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kilstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.theagilebrand.show. To get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, visit my website at gregkillstrom.com. Until next week, stay agile.